That's okay. We combobulated.
And since we started the recording, I can call the meeting of the JMRL Board Policy Committee meeting to order. The meeting twice. Do we have any remote participants that we need to read in?
We just have joining us remotely Acacia Rogers, who is currently serving as JMRL's volunteer coordinator.
Okay, great. So first on our agenda is the discussion of Policy 2.9 volunteers. As a recap, we have compiled sample volunteer or other peer volunteer policies throughout the state, about 15 or 20 of those. We sort of some extraction of common themes from those and look those over ourselves, as well as our current policy discussed with Acacia, and together we kind of prioritized open issues and themes that we wanted to carry forward into our own policy. Based on that kind of bullet list or target list of things that we wanted to include, we do have a draft starting point today that's kind of been put together. And the goal today would be to kind of talk through that and see if what changes we want to make or wordsmithing or things to add or delete, and see if we can get to a final draft. So that in our handout, this current draft that I'm alluding to is the red last two pages with the red text. And then sort of the previous pages are sort of the paper trail of the issues that we identified and kind of talked through.
Mike, we also shared this draft with Heather Pennick, who couldn't be here today, who is the Young Adult Services Coordinator, in charge of teen volunteers.
Right. So the floor is open for any, if someone has a specific point or bullet point, we could bring that forward. Otherwise, we can just kind of read through paragraph by paragraph of this draft.
I did want to say I had not been for the meeting that we started this on, and looking at these notes, I was very impressed and appreciative of the quality of the notes and the memorandums and the things that were online. Thank you.
Well, let's just say our friend Claude helped a lot, which is an interesting observation about the world we're living in today. But yes, there was some automation involved in kind of reading through the 20 peer. That's who I mean is Claude. Claude is a non-human assistant. But yes, if you use it properly, it can be pretty helpful.
That made me wonder about some of the things I saw there.
Okay, okay, right. So take it all with a grain of salt. But we tried to use that to help us focus on. It was really good at counting. Hey, this theme showed up in 5 of the 15. You didn't have to write it down with a paper check mark.
It's like you're with Claude.
Yeah.
My daughter uses it quite a bit.
Great.
I think that the discussion that the group had really focused on, I think it was not a bad policy already, the one we were starting with, but there were a few things that staff had wanted some clarity on that were in the notes here, just the policy committee notes there. So one of them is the presence of staff during volunteer-led programming, which has been quite a topic of discussion amongst library staff for the last few months. The other one was clarifying volunteer access to patron information and somehow addressing the differences between an intern and a volunteer, and then some stuff about making sure we're addressing training and a teen volunteer program. And I feel like the draft did a pretty good job of hitting on, at least addressing all of those, and you'll see them come up as you work through the draft.
And just to follow up, David and I talked about those various points like that, and for each one we kind of made a choice. How prescriptive do we want to be in the draft, and or do we want to mention the issue and leave it to kind of an operational decision? So at each of those, I think wanted to set an outer boundary and make a choice about how much flexibility we wanted, operational management to have day to day to kind of adapt that guidance to whatever specific situations might come up. So there's a kind of a specificity issue, I think, David, with each one of those.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll just read through. And I guess we don't really need to read it out loud, but we'll just start with the intro.
Largely lifted from the previous.
Yeah, maybe some tweaks. But generally, I like the concept of a preparatory setting the stage paragraph in essentially all these policies. Okay, if nothing there, then we'll talk about the role of volunteer up to the start of the bullets, this is where we covered most of this was already there as well. No compensation or benefits. And then with the list of activities, we wanted, the intent here is to, if you scroll down just a little bit, David, to show this bullet list. The intent was to show a representative list without being prescriptive about these are all the things that volunteers do. But we wanted to indicate for potential volunteers who might look at this, here's the type, and for the public, here's the type of things that the library might use volunteers for.
Here's maybe the first time that programming issue gets addressed, where it says assisting with library programs instead of hosting or sending.
But I do think there's potential overlap with the program policy. Did we talk about that?
We talked about the fact that there might be, but we didn't open up the program policy to look at.
Yeah. I mean, that would be another place where you could be prescriptive if you wanted to. I don't think it is right now.
Well, we have volunteers that do programs.
This is the discussion, and part of the discussion and has been focused around children's and teen programming. And we certainly have volunteers that put on programs for us. It's just whether or not we're going to have a requirement that staff would be in the room with them. And I'm leaning towards, for the kids and young adult programs at least, a staff member would need to be in the room, call it a library program. We certainly have plenty of people who use the library meeting room space to put on events that anybody can come into that wouldn't be a library program. But if we're going to put the stamp on it to say this is JMRL vetted and approved.
And what's the policy now?
There is.
It's mixed. Some branches still have volunteer-led programs kind of grandfathered in, but new programs going forward, we're leaning away from that.
It's not addressed in the previous version.
Right. So to Anne, I think if you're using the word specifically, what's our policy now? I don't think there's a written at policy level. I think what Krista was just describing is more of a procedural level.
But the staff perceives that it's a good policy to have the staff.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there's mixed feelings about
Depending, right? Some of the smaller branches couldn't have as many programs if they couldn't let the volunteers run them on their own. But in other branches, it's important. We feel it's important to have a staff member in the program to make sure that nothing happens in the program that we wouldn't want to be. I mean, it's a library program, so there's some standards and procedures and things that need to apply.
So one of the big questions has been, how much of this is a board level decision and how much of this is a procedural decision. I think the way that Mike and I wrote this draft, it largely leaves this as a procedural one, but I'm letting the board know that the lean of the program coordinators and myself is going to be towards, at least for the children's and young adult programming, that staff have to be
In the room for the entire thing or in and out? Because again, thinking about the smaller libraries.
Fine line, like in the Scottsville Library, right, where the room is right here and they're there and they run out and they fill up a pitcher of water and come back or something, but generally responsible.
Yes. Right. It's kind of like, you have your children within eyesight of you, because if something happens, something's said or somebody's touched, or maybe not even between the volunteer and the attendee, maybe between the attendee, we want to steer away from that being a possibility.
We want the public to know who to turn to if there is an issue, fire alarm goes off. We're gonna do, this describes a case that's got a volunteer handbook. This is very good, but it probably doesn't go into all the emergency procedures for every branch, so the staff on hand are the ones who would know, here's what to do.
But again, at the policy, in terms of the draft we're looking at, if anyone here thinks it would be important at a policy level to say, to put any of those in place, specifically, a staff member has to be there all the time, this would be the time and place to put it, right? And David is just surfacing the fact that that's not at a policy level if we keep this language. And I personally think that's the right approach, but I'm open for discussion.
No, I think it's important to leave it flexible enough for the different branches.
Yeah. So there's just too much variety in the different branches and different programs. I mean, my personal goal is just along the lines of what Krista was saying, and maybe Ann also. I just want the staff to know what is going on. How you would write that in a policy.
Well, certainly I don't see it specifically, but certainly JMRL approves but we're talking about programs.
Right, that would be
approves. That we approve every program.
Yeah, one of the examples is like the Pause to Read program, where you have a volunteer with a service dog or a dog, and they're working with kids, and maybe they're in a big room like this, but then maybe they're in a section of, and what if the dog bites somebody, or what if language is used that's not appropriate or something, and then there's a complaint, and if you don't have a staff person there, you said,
Yeah, and I guess to me, it's not as big of a deal if you've got, if JMRL partners with the Monopoly Club for adults, and they set up the room, and they introduce it, they say thanks to the friends for providing the refreshments, and does the staff member need to be there the entire time while adults are kind of doing an activity? Maybe not. We have to hash out the things, but if it was a Monopoly Club for 5 to 8 year olds, some responsible adult should be.
That's all programs.
It's all programs.
Just
right. We're specifically, this is the main issue that staff are interested in, though. I would say, I'm speaking for every staff, is having clarity on what we're going to do moving forward, because it was surfaced, within the last year that this is being treated differently in some branches. So we want to have as much guidance as we can give. That doesn't have to be necessarily at the policy level, but I want the board to be aware that this is an ongoing discussion.
We're talking about programs, but it's the intersection with volunteers and programs, so that's why it kind of.
If it's a library program, library staff know that they need to be. If they say we're going to do a Monopoly Club, and the library comes up with the flyers and all that, then the staff member responsible is going to be in their program. The gray area is if an outside group comes in, or an outside presenter that's a volunteer, not somebody that we're paying, not the summer reading storyteller.
example is the chess club.
Or the ballet and book. It's like a national organization. This is their chapter. They're coming. They're doing a program. Your volunteers. We put them through our volunteer background check.
in the dog, the pet meeting.
The Legos came up a few times. There are a few different examples at branches where there's a Lego program. Actually, that's not volunteer. That's just.
But to me, it doesn't matter if once we put it on our calendar, our event calendar, and said this is a library program, that's a program. It doesn't matter to me whether the staff initiated that or the volunteer.
That's how the public would do it. It says that it's the library. I'm expecting a certain level of quality, a certain level of safety. I'm expecting these things that the library is promising when they're putting on a program. So it's not unreasonable to me that you would have somebody there responsible. But it is a strain. It's not without problems. There's a give and take.
I will also say that when this discussion initially came up, one of the branch managers spoke to her volunteers, and one of the volunteers was grateful to have this brought up because she ran a legacy program and didn't feel like she could end the volunteership. Didn't feel like she could end the volunteership because if she left, the program would fall apart. And she didn't feel she had the luxury to leave. So that is also something to consider with volunteer-led programming.
We're not putting lifetime commitment into policy.
Yeah, it's just the pressure to, once you start the program, continue it on once it's gone on 15 years. And maybe you want to leave, but you don't feel you can.
So David, also in this bullet point, the last one I noted, volunteers could assist with data entry.
Yeah.
How does that intersect with the discussion of privacy that you kind of pointed out in your?
Yeah, when we're talking about data entry here, we're not talking about patron information. We're talking about other data projects, like presumably, we've got folks working with Dylan on the newsletter. They're kind of collecting information from our calendar and putting it into a newsletter, things like that. So not patron information data.
Should we specify that in there?
Well, I just noticed it is specified when we get to the end. It's the
That is addressed separately, but
Well, couldn't you just put other than personnel data? But they are.
Well, if you look at the
I know.
you see that?
Whoever.
Yeah.
Shocking admission.
Well, ultimately, the volunteer is not going to walk in and start typing computers. It's where the staff is assigning them to do. And so if we're telling staff, you can't. Here's a boundary at the end, then I think it wouldn't come up. We could have.
Can we put something like non-confidential data entry?
Yeah, non.
I mean, just simple, just real clear.
Confidential.
Even confidential, it's personal or individual or human. it's like names and because if it's just information, it's not related to a person. It's
because we would let a volunteer do something like
calendaring
or even some things with the collection that didn't touch Sierra or software. So like data entry of all the books that are being discarded for
the inventory.
Something like inventory is a good example.
So how do we say just not, because we're not saying personnel, say.
I think this is okay as a signal, and then you've got the further clarification at the end.
What did you say?
Non-confidential in blue. The colors are a little off.
Oh, I see. Yeah, let's just do that. Just keep it. So that they know we thought through this.
Yeah, it's washed out.
Okay. So then we've got activities, and then there are sort of categories, because we do manage, is my understanding, adult and teens differently, and there's a separate adult handbook and teen handbook.
The clarification I got from Heather here is that it's a team volunteer contract at this point that lays out expectations there. So it's just the specific terminology is not a handbook.
Okay. I see. So that's changed here.
It just changed from it was handbook when you and I were talking about it.
Okay, but it sounds like a multi-page thing where there's some
detailed document.
And then this is where we also were able to introduce the concept that there might also be interns, and interns are not the same as volunteers.
And can we define as an intern that's a non-paid?
We do have paid.
Sometimes they're paid. The NAACP intern is paid. KIP, the Charlotte
by us.
program, we don't pay them. They're
Can
paid.
you distinguish? Can you articulate the distinction between an intern and what's an intern?
I think it's so the main ones that we deal with are the NAACP intern, the Charlottesville area youth internship program, KIP, and then what we're seeing a lot of is library science students from Old Dominion. We're getting a tremendous amount of requests from, they have to do a practicum of library work. It's like, it's a lot too. It's a lot of hours.
But an intern performs what service? Did you say?
That's what we're trying to figure out because
you're not.
What we're saying is that it's different from the volunteers.
I know.
Right. So we would, potentially if we were paying an intern, like for the NAACP intern, we train them on library policies and procedures and would allow them a level of access to the patron database that we wouldn't allow a volunteer, or probably even the library school students, because we're treating them at that time as a temporary employee.
I mean, can we say they're a library may host paid or unpaid trained interns. I mean, there's just, it doesn't,
I mean,
it
it's,
doesn't
I'm not
speak
quite
to
certain
any
if-
difference between what an intern and.
well, because it's through academic or professional programs. So it's not just an individual coming and volunteering their time. It's like they're doing this experience as part of
A
academic
requirement.
training or some other.
There's a requirement, and it's usually a set amount too. It's not gonna be indefinite.
We also have volunteers that meet those categories. If you have like National Honor Society students.
Yeah, we do.
That needs to meet 100 hours of work. Those are,
No, it says here court ordered can't do it.
I think it's not saying that. Is that right? In our draft here, it says that because that's something that we talked about quite a bit at the last meeting.
You mean if the court orders you to do a certain amount of.
Right.
volunteer-
I think we have left that up to managers depending on their capacity.
So it's me reading through the other.
Well, no, some of the other ones that we looked at
Yeah.
definitely have said that.
That's where I found it. But I'm questioning if this is called the draft about volunteers and we're saying interns are not volunteers, why do we have interns underneath volunteers and volunteer activities,
Volunteer categories.
volunteer categories?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean.
I think the idea
Something separate.
So we did, I think, talk about possibly having a separate intern policy where we have more room to define some of these questions. For now, we just wanted to because there's no other place where we've said interns are allowed. We thought we would at least carve it out here that, hey, there can be interns that are not volunteers, so they're different, the rules are different.
But shouldn't that be under a total different head?
It could be,
Be a whole new policy.
we think.
Well, it'd be a new policy, but also if you have volunteer categories and then you have interns that are not volunteers underneath volunteer categories. I mean, I
Yeah,
understand wanting to address it, but you're,
Yeah, so what you're proposing is moving it.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to have something.
Or do it at the end.
Yeah, maybe.
Its own bullet or its own
Yeah.
category.
I think,
or its
I
own
think-
subheading,
I
but
think the end result here is going to be an internship procedure for staff on how to deal with this. I know like Casey has asked about that before. We've had other branches ask about it before because there's a lot more demand. There didn't used to be a library school in Virginia until ODU opened a few years ago. And we're getting a lot more demand. And sometimes we can say yes, sometimes we can say no. Sometimes it's great and useful, and sometimes it's not. We don't have enough time.
So could I suggest,
I would take that. I agree. We should take.
Well,
It's not a category.
let me offer a suggestion. Shift tab to the left, this whole area, so it's no longer a bullet. It is now a clarification. It's just a sentence within this. It's just a clarifying sentence. Yeah, like that. It's not a category. We're just clarifying. Hey, I guess you would take out the word intern at the beginning. I think we do see this in other spots. We're just clarifying.
I like that.
It's not a category, but there's also this other thing that in the world.
Okay.
That's okay with that?
Ish.
yeah, not comfortable with it.
I think if
Because
we
it's still
had
this
a,
volunteer category
Yeah.
and bold up above.
Yeah, yeah,
if we had an intern policy, I feel like this is exactly where we would point to it and say like, if you're looking for info about interns, basically
See,
this is the one, look here, but we don't have that, so.
This reminds us that
We should.
Policy or have procedure. I think the board is saying it's okay for the staff to take on interns by
Yeah.
passing this policy.
But if we are getting more and more of them,
Yeah, we need better procedures.
eventually we may need a policy. But is it in the procedure manual? There's no, that would be a good start to do that. Just for the different branches so for consistent.
So we need an internship coordinator. Instead of, unless or it's volunteer and internship coordinator.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Casey is like,
now I'm seeing some pressure.
I mean, who does handle Each branch manager.
Branch manager.
Branch manager. It's usually a contract that has to be signed if it's with a school, for instance, or a university.
Yeah, Camille hosted one at Gordon Avenue last summer or the summer before, last summer.
Yeah.
He has hosted some. We've had an issue has come up too where we have our own staff going through this program that need these hours too, but you can't do it in your own. If you're a children's librarian, you can't do the internship in children's librarianship. It has to be in a different field. I have feelings about it.
Yeah.
It's based on their student teaching model, which is obviously a very successful model, but in this case, they're taking library professionals that have been doing this for a very long time and requiring them to go through an extra step in the middle.
They should get benefit of experience.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't have to do that.
Okay, so good enough for now to show to the whole board.
Yeah.
All right, so then it's a little bit of logistics. And these are things that I think are good to, at a board level, to say, hey, management, we want you to do these things. We want to, well, partly it's telling prospective volunteers, we have an application. We might do background checks.
What's the criteria for that? I think we talked about this, but I can't remember.
We had done them for everyone, but recently a question came up about non-public service ones. But I think it's important that if we're going to tell the public like this person is volunteering and interacting, then they have been through this, Krista.
Because I have a Kiwanis service night tonight, I should have brought this up before, but you say that all prospective volunteers complete a volunteer application and get background checked. But there are occasions when we get a group from UVA, or we have once a year the Kiwanis want to do their service night at JMRL. And so it's like 15 people that show up tonight at 6 o'clock. But I wonder if it's clarified where, because
It's clarified in the volunteer procedure, because I remember talking with Heather about this years ago, so.
but we say here all, so I wonder if we need to say on occasion groups, because what if like
You're talking about the application, not the background check.
right, we don't do background checks on the Kiwanis volunteers. We don't do background checks on the UVA group that shows up and wants to do a one-day service project. What if the United Way's Day of Service team shows up?
I mean, how do you just, I mean, I just want, if I came in and said, oh, I want to be a volunteer, and the kids from, you say, oh, you need a background check on you. But I knew that my, father-in-law didn't get a background check last night.
For individuals,
You know-
currently, every individual.
right.
So I would think adding the word individuals here.
Individuals.
I believe this is covered in the procedure.
Okay.
Can I
Yeah,
take a
go ahead.
page for
Yeah, I mean, literally, this is a group.
You would just, some people would wonder why.
And they're supervised, like Karen and I spend the whole evening with them, and they don't really do anything with the public. They do like cleaning and stickering and like gardening, or, we give them things, projects for that night.
It's more like they're a volunteer of the organization that they're
Yes,
coming with.
right.
and that
Organization
is doing
volunteers,
a
yeah.
service project at JMRL.
Because, we've done like the United Day way of like Day of Service thing, or we've had UVA group, it was a couple different UVA groups. Yeah.
Yeah, I could be
The
wrong.
way I've often explained the distinction to staff is if it's a one-time group that's not interacting with the public, then they don't need a volunteer or a background check. But if they are intending to come back multiple times or as an individual, that's when they need the background check. Or if you're planning on having them interact with the public, not as a program partnership, then you need a background check.
The general policy is to have a background check.
Maybe just add individual volunteers.
So adding individual, so this is about, there's two different things going on here. This is about the application.
And then the background check.
I think saying at the board level, saying the library may perform allows staff to make that distinction.
The may, yeah. Thanks, Casey.
And it's not based on like any individual coming in.
And then what do you do? Fingerprints?
No, it's like a name search basically. There's There's a paid service.
I mean, it's becoming a big deal, like in a lot of schools now, parent volunteers have to go get
Teachers have to do background check.
they have to get their fingerprints, or they can sit in the cafeteria during lunchtime. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's sort of it's incredible. Or coaches, coaches, their volunteers.
I had to do it for 4-H, and I got denied because it turned out, well, not denied.
Being recorded. They're being recorded, remember?
Well, it turned out that the registration of my vehicle had lapsed.
Oh, wow. That'll flag you up.
And that flagged
With your
with a background check, because in the 4-H volunteer, you also be driving.
Oh, yeah. Very strict, no driving.
And so, well, it was very fortunate because I had not realized that it happened.
Okay, so
That's a lot of money.
that meet.
Yeah, yes.
That's because they don't send out forms in the mail anymore.
No, they just send you an
You're just
email.
supposed to we were late too. We were just supposed to figure it out. Yeah.
It was,
Other thoughts here?
So just from the board level, are we happy with the approach that there's a case by case as far as the criminal background, and Acacia kind of articulated what the algorithm that's being used right now, which sounds good to me, but just double checking, we're comfortable leaving it that to a procedural level. I am, but this is where, if we wanted to try and document what Acacia just outlined, this is where that would go. If we wanted to prescribe that at a policy level, that's where this is where that would go.
where does the group thing come in? I mean, I want to bring a group of people in to volunteer, and I look at this and I don't know what procedure I'm going to be following.
You're gonna have to talk to staff before you.
No.
I hate to break it to you, but yeah, you're either gonna talk to our volunteer coordinator or you're gonna call and talk to the branch manager.
Yeah,
at the staff.
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Well, honest, they call me and then they email me and then we confirm and that's it.
It sounds like what Acacia just laid out, you need to get volunteer application in for the Kiwanis, because it is an ongoing.
Once a year.
It's once a year ongoing.
I'll tell you, if I were a person of color, I would look at this and go, I have to fill out an application, but are they going to do a background, am I going to be targeted for a criminal background check? Whereas if you just said all individuals must complete a volunteer application and library will perform a background check, then I wouldn't be anxious about it. I think I'd be anxious.
I will say that if people have questions about it, we only check for sexual or violence-based records. As long as nothing flags up, like we have volunteers who have flags come up and it's like an enormous amount of parking tickets, but that doesn't impact if you can volunteer at JMRL. So we do look specifically for like two things.
But if I were just looking at the policy and deciding, should I volunteer for the library or for the Boys and Girls?
So currently we are background checking for all individuals that are, is this correct, Acacia, that are applying to volunteer at JMRL?
Yes, as part of our safe child policy.
I would say that.
So we could.
Instead of having that May.
I think the reason we put the May in was because of the question about,
Groups.
not groups, it was
Grandfathered
about,
ones.
not grandfathered ones, it was about somebody who would not be doing wouldn't be coming to the library at all. They would be doing some sort of virtual remote volunteering.
Data analysis project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're doing it from their house, they're not coming into the library, but I still think it's probably safer just to say,
Yeah. All
because even if that came out in the news the next day, like, library
They-
employee Charles
just
Manson,
instantly
right?
just go.
Yeah. Okay, so what does that look like?
And you also said this is due to our safe child or whatever.
Yeah.
Would that be appropriate to put that in there? I mean, that's the reason we're doing this.
I don't think we need that.
Casey, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Branch managers? And that's what we're currently
Well,
doing.
Yeah.
It leaves less flexibility moving forward, but if there's a question,
Singling out, so.
yeah, if there's a question from the board of like, okay, then how do you make that decision? Then we can just say, this is what we're doing, this is what we'll continue to do. If there's a problem with this moving forward, the board can revisit it.
I think you might need to put individual, or otherwise you've just committed to background checking all the Kiwanis volunteers.
Same thing with the orientation. Here's how you put a sticker on.
You put individual prospective in the first sentence and then prospective individual in the second. And then the only other little feedback I have is I think it probably would, maybe you're already doing this, but in the group scenario, I think it's probably would be a good practice to just understand who all those people are, even if we're not background checking. So at least some kind of sign in. Yeah, well, just some kind of sign in sheet.
We definitely count them up and we credit their hours. Getting all their names, we don't always do, but
I'm comfortable leaving that to procedure, but I would think we kind of just for in case of after the fact, we kind of want to know who
someone
is
sneaks in
doing.
as if they're a member of the Kiwanis.
Yeah, you know, skills.
Okay. Okay. So then the first little sentence here, first little group was about what happens beforehand, or before acceptance, and then the second is when you are accepted. We're at a policy level. We're saying you're going to orient all the volunteers in some fashion.
Here's this part for that.
Oh, okay.
This is not about background checks, but it's about.
Okay, so we're going to orient everyone, and we have a volunteer handbook for that people would acknowledge. And then we move to just general expectations. We want some staff member to be a known point of contact for each volunteer. And some staff member is going to supervise all the work that's done. And then they're going to be identified as a JMRL representative. And they're held to the Safe Child in the same way. Next is the confidential patient information, which we already kind of touched on, but this is the detailed boundary about that. And then second to last paragraph, since you're representing the library, you're subject to all JMRL policies. We don't have any, and then there's sort of no requirement from the library to continue any volunteer relationship. So there's just sort of any time and any reason we can do that. And then apparently we get
Comes up with kids a lot.
you are interested in, oh yeah, can I put this on my resume, that sort of thing.
The intern too.
Yeah.
Interns too, yeah.
So we are allowing that to happen. We do.
I think procedurally, we may need to figure out how we're keeping track of those forms for volunteers, because there's no personnel file for them to put it into, just a note on it.
Yeah, what I have told the supervisors in charge is that they need to keep it on file for whatever it says in our record retention. I think it's 3 years. Because yeah, sometimes people send them to Donna Lee, and she's like,
I don't know this person.
Yeah, that's good. Kept locally instead of.
Yeah.
Okay, David, did we cover all of the highlight points that you started out with?
I believe so. Just close that tab. So we reviewed the peer libraries. We talked about volunteers and programming. Talked about access to patron information. We talked about interns. Talked about training. We differentiated the teen volunteer program, and we talked about background checks. So yeah, we hit the highlights.
David, just so we don't forget, I'm seeing the middle point there that Ann and Mike were interested in a intern separate policy. Can we put that in your open policy work, ongoing work document. Yeah, just at the bottom somewhere. Yeah, perfect. Okay, anything else on this draft? Are we ready to recommend this to the full board with the edits that we've made today?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. So we'll have a first reading at the full board meeting. Okay, so next is a discussion of, it's already February. What's the first meeting this year?
Yeah.
Of what's on tap for this year. In terms of the required 10-year review schedule, it's the first table that David is showing. And do we have it? Is that in the handout? The last page. Okay, thank you. And that's what this is what they are. David kind of observed these are mostly, except for notary, the rest are all sort of procedural stuff related to the board and governance. So public, yeah, I guess they're all separate topics. Was your thinking, David, that there might be an opportunity to consolidate some of these?
Yeah, I think these could be one policy that deals with board procedures. That has subset. It might be kind of a longer policy, but right now these are basically a holdover from the old paper 3-ring binder, where each of these are a different page, and the first section was all board policy stuff. And some of those, we like the bylaws and the regional agreement and things like that, they need their own thing, but these are all like, how does the board run its business? And to me, if you start looking at them, they could be consolidated. I know Sierra has strong opinions about the board meeting minutes policy. There are just some things that are outdated there that can be clarified, and they're just very procedural for the board. So it's not even like the library staff would say, oh yeah, we'll make all these library procedures. The board needs to be involved in that decision making, but I think it's just confusing to have 5 different policies about this. And I'll show you what I mean here. So we'll open them kind of one at a time. Like here, this is one. This is the first one. The library board will set goals for the system, develop a comprehensive 5-year plan that's updated. Like that, does that need its own policy, or is that a statement in here's what we're doing?
How the board operates.
Not sure we actually do that. The first part.
Yeah, I think you said goals for the library director.
Right.
And then this is all Robert's rules stuff. So I mean, I think you could replace all of this with the library's use of procedures for procedures. Yeah. I don't have strong feelings about it. Public hearings, I think this is worth a conversation about. It's not something that in my tenure as the library director we've done. Even when we've had intense public interest in a topic, we've never, in my time, had a separate public hearing. We're not required to by law, which some municipal organizations are. There is nothing in library boards must offer public hearings. Now, it's not a bad idea to have a procedure should we ever want one, but to me, this could also be part of a subset or something else. Board meeting minutes. Yeah. Use the Robert's rules information. I forget the other specifics here, but I know there's stuff in there that's.
Oh, it was an attendance thing. It was I think it says in the minutes list when people arrive and when they leave, but the Robert's rules, they don't do that. So they're conflicting.
Also, if some of this has changed now that we offer virtual access, this doesn't mean our meeting minutes haven't changed. They're as good as they've ever been. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Kristen, for working on them while Sarah was out. But we also now can somewhere address in here that we are offering, unless there's an equipment failure, electronic versions. It's something we've been doing since COVID, but the board wants to make that part of their ongoing procedures to say, like, yes, David, make it happen that we have a recording. I don't think that's addressed anywhere.
I think there's also a new edition.
Robert's rules, yeah. I think saying most current edition. And then that also, like, there were a couple more in that section. One of them is its own policy, 1.2, but it is a the Board of Trustees, like, here's the list of all those policies. So this has its own policy, but this should probably just be tossed because this is just a table of contents from a 3-year binder. Point being that I think there's
You
some
need to clean this
some
up.
room to clean it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whether that's making it all one thing or picking a few broad categories. Or changes to the policy manual. We probably want to look at this because I don't think this follows what our current procedures are.
Which policy has the one where how many meetings you have to attend and all that stuff?
I think that's
State law.
What's that?
I think that's state law. Well, no, okay, I'm sorry.
The one that gives them the most detail about that is the remote participation policy.
No, but she's right. There's a different one where which is different from remote. If a trustee just misses a certain number,
It's in the.
that's a
it's
regional
in the original
agreement. That's the regional.
Oh, it's the regional.
It says that,
But that's a policy.
it's a policy, but it's not our policy. The library board can't write that. It's adopted as a policy, but it's an agreement signed between the 5 jurisdictions. And it basically says that it's my duty to notify the jurisdiction when a trustee misses X amount of meetings.
It's in my policy agreement. It's like, oh shit, I better get on the meeting.
I have to go this time. And I can skip 2 more.
So my proposal would be that we kind of take these as a package deal. So not even necessarily that we consolidate them into one, but that we discuss them as these are all like board level procedural.
I agree. Make it pieces and clean it up.
And I think if that's the case, we could probably come up with a draft for the next meeting. And the notaries might be a big one. Yeah.
Your notary,
To do a CE on those first.
Oh, yeah, we could do a CE on notaries. That would
Because
be-
the volume of that and the type written.
Does every branch have a notary capacity?
I believe so. The only one that I'm questioning now is whether or not Anne is a notary himself.
Remember? I think she is. I can tell you in
Yeah, I
a
think
moment.
she is.
Yeah.
It's very.
It's a
big
very
experience.
popular experience or service.
I mean, we talked about notary, this policy last year.
I think we talked about notaries
About whether you have to
because
get
we were talking about
Charging.
charging and appointments and
Yeah.
cards. We started talking about it because of the fund and fees discussion. I think would the board want to start charging for notaries? So I think we had a CE on notary information. When
Yeah.
that was part of
The
that.
bookmobile even has one now. Ann Lindbergh is a notary and Camille Thompson is one for the bookmobile. Do you
We're
have
not
your stuff?
advertising.
Do you have your stuff on the bookmobile?
I have my stuff in the bookmobile
That would be-
office. I don't
that would be
think I can do that on the road.
Very-
There's not even like a place to put the stuff to do this.
Yeah. Louisa has 3 notaries.
So can we, Mike, maybe say that at the April meeting of the board committee of the policy committee that we'll tackle, maybe we'll come with some suggestions and we'll tackle kind of these board level procedural.
yeah, how I'm thinking about it is we might pop them all open one by, so you have homework to look at them in advance. We might pop them open one by one, and maybe David, you can identify if there are other ones that are not on the schedule, but would be logically grouped together.
I think it's these 2 here. I pretty much did that. It's 1.2 and 1.28.
Okay, great. And we would kind of go through and just, again, bullet point. Hey, we need to keep this. Hey, this could be cut. Hey, this needs to be updated. Hey, this can be turned into a general statement instead of a bullet pointed procedure. And that would be our working list for a draft for the following meetings. That's how I'm thinking about it.
I mean, I will say that the board doesn't have a separate procedural manual. So like this is the only place where if you
Right.
want to lay out, like you need to do this, you need to do that,
Right.
then this is where.
But I'm thinking of minutes, for example, I've only just skimmed it right as you showed it on the screen, but I might think about, can I accomplish that with high level guidelines? These are the types of elements and the characteristics that the minutes should have without spelling out, there has to be this paragraph and not this paragraph and that sort of.
Yeah, and most of that is covered in Robert's rules anyway. that's what that's based on.
Yeah.
So I think referring to, similar to like the conversation we had about record retention, where it's like you have to follow the rules. If we're saying you have to follow Robert's rules, then it lays out pretty clearly what needs to be in minutes.
I would advocate even for not just saying we do Robert's rules and then leaving it to the reader to go read the rules and analyze. I would advocate for at least an extracted summary of aspects of it that are important and relevant to these various topics.
Yeah, I think we're doing more balance of like what the board and future board members need to know about what to expect here. You know, like somebody, you know, one of those ones we popped open, you said right away, like, no, we don't do that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So clarifying some things there, making them either match our reality or where the board wants to go.
Yeah.
And then also for the public,
Right.
things like there are things that probably aren't covered in Robert's rules that the public might want to know. Like if there's a big discussion about something, the minutes aren't going to say, well, then Martha said this and Mike said that. And, you know, they're just going to say the action of the board.
Right.
And I don't know if that's covered. You could say discussion happened. You don't even need to say that.
That's what I usually am doing, do discussion ensued.
Discussion.
Like if you want to go watch the video, if you want to know exactly what was there.
Then at the same time, if this is our only board policy, again, there should be some mention of expectations pursuant to the regional agreement.
Yeah, we could look through and see if there's anything.
I mean, like, again, it's attendance. That's a big thing, actually.
I mean, to me, if we're writing something called
I mean,
board procedures, then we could have something, you know, we could add things that aren't addressed here that the current board feels. Yeah, I don't, you know, we don't need to replicate the bylaws. The bylaws might have something that address that too.
Yeah.
We're not writing new bylaws unless the board wants to.
if there's policies that are expected, that the board, you know, any board member must adhere to them, even if they're in the regional agreement, not a policy.
Yeah.
Or just make some reference to the regional agreement.
Yeah, I think, right, everything we do flows from that agreement between Charles Hall and Rockland. So,
All right, well, let's try and identify whatever we want to surface, whether it's from the regional agreement or anywhere else, and get that bullet pointed at the end of next meeting. And that would be kind of my goal, is to get all those into one pot.
and we will plan another board CEO on notaries. We have done something fairly recently, but this will be in light of the policy itself, but not necessarily maybe the summer sometime.
Yeah, I would think if we're doing board stuff first, then I think the first time we would look at notary would be 4 months from now. Yeah, I mean, I will say, just a detailed comment with the minutes, we're in a different world today because we have the backup of you can go watch the video and you can ask Claude to tell you what, you don't even have to watch the video. You can get Claude to watch it for you and he can tell you what happened. So the public has access to a much greater degree of transparency about what happened in these meetings, you know, than 5 years ago, you know, a few years ago before we started doing that. So that would be a question: is do we bullet point that we're at a board level, we're describing that that's something we're going to do, you know, with possibly.
We are legally required to have
Already.
minutes.
No, to have minutes, yes. No, I'm talking about the video backup, which in some ways obviates the minute.
Well, I think that FOIA law in the state says that the meeting of the public body has to have published minutes.
All good. I'm just talking about the backup of do we have to do a video? And I think the answer is no, right, but we're choosing to do that. And I think and would we bullet point that as we enact into policy that we're going to make that choice at a policy level. It's something.
I'm sure the bylaws require minutes.
Yeah. I haven't looked at them in a while. Happy not having a look at them.
All right, anything else for today? So homework is look at these, start familiarizing yourself with these, including the potential additions, which are also on this last page of the handout. So look at everything on this page, this last handout, except for notary. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you all.
Thanks, Acacia.
Meeting is closed.
Meeting is adjourned.